Welcome to the lecture on fragments. What is a fragment? A fragment is a group of words that looks like a sentence, which means it has capitalization and end punctuation, but lacks an independent clause. Let's review basic sentence structure. What is a sentence? A sentence is the expression of a thought, usually consisting of a subject and a predicate. The subject is the person or thing being discussed. The predicate contains the verb. Example, the Saints won, period. In this sentence, Saints is the subject, won is a verb. This is a complete sentence. There are several types of fragments that happen. There's the no subject fragment, a no verb fragment, a subordinating word fragment, an added detail fragment, and an intentional fragment. A no subject fragment is missing subjects. Missing subject fragments occur when the writer assumes the reader understands who or what the subject is. It's best to always keep a subject, though. Example, Drew Brees called for the ball, period. Ran out the clock, period. You'll notice in the second sentence, it's missing a subject. The reader is assuming that the subject is Drew Brees, but it's missing. How do we fix it? You just add the subject. Drew Brees called for the ball, period. He ran out the clock, period. Another type of fragment is the no verb fragment. Missing verb fragments often exist because the writer is missing a main verb, although a participle form might exist. Example, Drew Brees called for the ball, period. Running out the clock, period. In this example, the second clause, which looks like a sentence, it has a capital R, and it has a period, is actually a fragment. Running is a participle form of the verb. It's not the main verb. How do we fix it? Correct the verb. Drew Brees called for the ball, period. He ran, not running, he ran out the clock, period. Another type of fragment is the subordinating word fragment. Words such as because, when, since are examples of subordinating conjunctions. They are used to create complex sentences. Attempting to create a complex sentence can result in an error. Example, because he ran out the clock, period. Since the car was stolen, period. When the Saints played in the Super Bowl, period. All three of these examples begin with capitalization and end with a period, so they look like a complete sentence, but they aren't. Remember that when you use subordinating conjunctions, a subordinating word, you're creating a dependent clause, meaning that it can't stand on its own, and you need to complete a complex sentence. Let's look at how I fix these. Because he ran out the clock, period. You can fix it by eliminating the word because and beginning the sentence with the subject he, or you can create that complex sentence that you want. Because he ran out the clock, comma, the team held on to the possession at the buzzer, period. Since the car was stolen, comma, I had to take the bus, period. Again, in this example, I've added the independent clause to the dependent clause and connected it with the comma. I remember when the Saints played in the Super Bowl, period. I added a subject and a main verb to the dependent clause at the beginning. And if I have the independent clause first and the dependent clause second, I don't need a comma. Another example of a fragment is the added detail fragment. Added detail fragments are created when writers neglect to include the details in the previous sentence. You'll see from my example. My mom made my favorite meal, period. Pastelaya, comma, garlic bread, comma, and salad, period. That second clause is not a sentence, although it does look like one. It has a capitalization and it has a period. However, that's an added detail fragment, and it must contain a subject or verb. These are easily fixed by adding them to the sentence previous. Here's how I fixed it. My mom made my favorite meal, which is pastelaya, comma, garlic French bread, comma, and salad, period. The final type of fragment is the intentional fragment. These exist in more casual writing and should be avoided in college writing. Example, he calls me, period, all, period, the, period, time, period. He said he'd call me, period. But when? Question mark. In these two examples, you can find the fragments, right? The word all is by itself, the word the is by itself, and time is by itself. Those are not sentences, those are intentional fragments and used for emphasis. Should be avoided in academic writing. And the second example, but when? Question mark. What you have is you have two conjunctions put together. You don't have a complete sentence. And this is the end of the lecture on fragments.